wait on the chance to kill my enemies and beat my case. So when they ask me how I feel about them, I can't say you're either with me or against me or you're in my way. I got a pack of hungry wolves, and if I don't feed them, then they might turn on me, feel like I don't need 'em. I keep the best pedigree, but hell, I don't breed them. It's a lot of people scared of me, and I can't blame them. They call me crazy so much, I think I'm starting to believe 'em. I did some things to some people that was downright evil. Is it karma coming back to me? So much drama. My own mama turned her back on me, and that's my mom. I lost 3 people close to me in one summer. 10 years later, still don't know, shot up my home. But I been, I don't break, I don't ask, I take. Black gloves and black tape, it's my first day. Wow. 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 Wow.
Good morning. Welcome to WODU. I am TJ the DJ. That was Gucci Mane. First day out the feds. And what a great song to actually roll into this brand new radio show here on ODU, or WODU, that is, on the campus of ODU. Beautiful web center, and hello there on the YouTube stream. Hello there on the Periscope stream. You can stream me at TJ the DJ WFOS on Periscope. I hope you tune in. Also, YouTube, WODU Live. You can tune us in on the campus television channels. And there are so many ways to get your hands on topical applications today here on WODU, happening every Monday from here on out, from 10:30 until 11:30, where we discuss the topics that are tough to talk about. And we just really want to sit down and have a conversation, open up some dialogue, and see where our fellow human beings stand on certain situations happening on the campus, happening in the communities, in the Commonwealth, in the country, internationally. The conversation will just happen wherever it happens. And sometimes it's going to be a lot of fun. Sometimes it's going to be difficult to talk about some things. And I really just want to lay that on the table. We need to find common ground. We need to come together and see where each other can work together, because that seems to be a big problem in interpersonal communications today. So that's what the goal of this show is to just kind of have discussions. We're gonna talk about books. We'll probably talk about music. We're definitely gonna talk politics, policy, all sorts of things. And I have a great show in store for you today. Today being the inaugural show of Topical Applications. There was some great news happening that I decided to go on ahead and take a hold of for this first show, and we're going to kick it off today. Of course, we're just going to have a little conversation for the first few minutes here, and then we're going to talk about President Broderick's State of the University address, having a new school year happening here on the campus of ODU. It's great to know where the president sees the campus, where it's heading, where it's been, what are some of our highlights of the previous year, and what's coming up, what students can expect. And then we're going to get into some conversation that's been happening in the news here in Norfolk. City Councilman Paul Riddick, as well as City Councilman Tommy Smeagol, have brought up the conversation of marijuana decriminalization here in the city of Norfolk. Of course, the city can't decriminalize themselves because of the laws here in the Commonwealth of how laws are implemented. However, they do submit a package of policies that they would like to see the Virginia General Assembly discuss when they meet during their session in January 2017. And there's also a big conference coming up October 9th through the 11th, the Virginia Municipal League Conference at the Virginia Beach Convention Center in Virginia Beach here. And they're going to have a workshop discussing this same topic. So I have a lot of experience with this topic as far as the conversation on policy has been going over the last few years. So I'd like to talk about that with you. We're also going to talk about Virginia's Governor Terry McAuliffe restoring the rights of former felons. Basically, pay your time, pay your debt to society, and you can get some rights back, especially people who have been convicted of these, low-level drug offenses or crimes that we're seeing don't really have that much of an impact upon society outside of maybe just being a societal ill and can be taken care of in another sense than clogging up the criminal justice system. And this is a bipartisan issue here with what Governor McAuliffe has been doing. He's just taking more progressive steps than governors in the past. And we're going to discuss that. We're also going to discuss President Obama has been commuting the sentences of nonviolent drug offenders. And we're going to talk about the implications of that, what's happening, why is it happening, what the conversation is around it, and is it supported. So that's what's going to happen today here on Topical Applications. We're also going to have an interview. I sat down with City Councilman Paul Riddick and spoke with him about the issue of marijuana decriminalization, what led him there. We're going to talk about that and much, much more. So hang out with me, like I said, on Periscope at TJ the DJ WFOS. That's the City of Chesapeake Public Schools radio station. I was there for the last 12 years and played music. I'm ready to talk on the radio. That's what I say. I'm ready to talk. So hanging out with you here on WODU, the beautiful web center here on the Old Dominion University campus in Norfolk, Virginia. And let's talk about this weather first. Let's make small talk before we get rocking and rolling, digging into the tough topics. And the weather today is gorgeous. Last night was beautiful here in Hampton Roads. This is what I love about Hampton Roads weather. The little bit that you can love about Hampton Roads weather is happening right now. The end of summer, what beautiful days we're having recently. And last night got to enjoy a sunset cruise on the American Rover sailing ship over there out of Waterside in Norfolk, and just kind of cruised around the harbor on the Elizabeth River, and it was gorgeous. It was beautiful. It was relaxing. Like I said, the weather was amazing. Had a little bit of rain before we shoved off from the pier. However, then we got out on the water, and it was just a beautiful sunset. And those sunsets, if you don't ever pay much attention to the sunset, right now is the time of year to really look at the sunset happening over the waters of Hampton Roads, because they are just phenomenal. Lots of colors. I love living right on the western branch of the Elizabeth River. I'm not on the water, but I am on, I'm surrounded by water where I am, and just seeing the colors coming, basically from the reflection of the water is just so relaxing, so nice. So get out, take a breath, enjoy outside sometimes, get away from the hustle and bustle and just watch that sunset, watch a sunrise. I haven't even had a chance to watch a sunrise on the Atlantic Ocean in a long time. So I need to get out and do that as well. All right. So that's talk about the weather. Today it's beautiful, gorgeous. I just made a walk from the Constant Center over here to the Web Center, and it was phenomenal. Enjoyed it immensely. So now we're going to talk about the state of Old Dominion University as through the eyes of President Broderick here at Old Dominion University. And he basically went over what's been happening. Let's see, it occurred on August 24th, his ninth address, talking about the university being known as a research hub, an economic engine, a model of volunteerism and inclusiveness. Old Dominion University logged over 534,000 hours in the 2015-2016 academic years in volunteering. That is a phenomenal number. There were more than 1,200 people in attendance for President Broderick's State of the University address. He asked attendees to bring food donations for the Food Bank of Southeastern Virginia. There was 463 pounds of food and cash, plus 3 large tubs and 12 backpacks of school supplies donated for the Salvation Army. He highlighted recent university achievements, the largest gift in Old Dominion University history, $35 million from the Berries to construct an art museum on 43rd Street. I just had the opportunity to go visit a friend of mine who's a professor over there in the art studios, and seeing what's going on that side of Hampton Boulevard as far as the arts are concerned here at Old Dominion University is amazing. It just seeing that explosion of art popping up here in Norfolk is great. I'm looking forward to what the Berry Arts Center is going to have. I don't know if that's what they're going to name it. That's what I just named it, though. And let's see what else happened during that State of the University address. Let me just pull it up here on the old computer. And let's see what else was highlighted here during the president of Old Dominion University's State of the University address. This is TJ, the DJ. You are listening to Topical Applications here on WODU. Live stream us on YouTube, Spreaker, TuneIn. I am live streaming on Facebook right now at TJ, the DJ WFOS, or Periscope, Periscope. I might switch over to Facebook here in a little bit and live stream as well. From the Periscope live stream, and talking again about Dr. Broderick's State of the University address here at Old Dominion University. There's been a lot of inclusiveness on the campus of Old Dominion University, and a lot of degrees awarded, a lot of students. We have 25,000 students here at Old Dominion University. That's a very large number. Building new residence halls coming up, and the new residence hall is going to be named after Dr. Hugo A. Owens, the first African-American to serve as rector of the Old Dominion University Board of Directors. That will further energize the campus community, bringing in, just recognizing those community leaders, especially in the African-American community. The Old Dominion University campus does have a lot of the African-American community around it, so it is great to embrace and include all of your communities around the university campus to make sure that everyone feels welcome on the campus. So that's just some of the things highlighted through his address, and you can find out more if you go to Old Dominion University's webpage, odu.edu, and just search for the State of University address, and there's an article by Brendan O'Hallam highlighting the State of the University address. Again, this is TJ the DJ on Topical Applications, WODU, beautiful web center here on the campus of Old Dominion University, talking about just different topics. Like I said, today we're going to talk about some low-level, nonviolent drug offenders, stuff that might affect you, a student here at Old Dominion University, as well as those here in the Old Dominion University community immediately, Norfolk, and the surrounding area of Hampton Roads. We have campuses all throughout Hampton Roads, so we want to include all of them. I personally am a resident of Chesapeake. I spend a lot of time in Norfolk, so I like to know what's happening all across Hampton Roads. It's great to be engaged. It's great to be involved in your communities and learn what people want to come together upon and find out what common ground we can find. So without further ado, we are going to dig into some topical applications here on WODU. And today we're going to talk about, this report came out back in 2015, about a year ago, October of 2015, titled Racial Disparities in Marijuana Arrests in Virginia. And it was evaluating 12 years worth of data, depending on what portions of the study you're reviewing. And it was released by Dr. Getman at Shenandoah University. So it was released from Virginia University, and it was just evaluating what marijuana arrests, low-level marijuana possession arrests, look like in the Commonwealth. And just to highlight some of the information shared in it, in Virginia, marijuana arrests rose 76%, while nationally they decreased 6.5% from a reporting period 2003 to 2014. So whereas the overall national numbers fell for marijuana possession arrests, overall nationally they fell 6.5%. In Virginia, they rose 76%. And while that number in and of itself is disparaging, and granted, these numbers are direct government numbers, these are not loaded statistics by any means. They're from the Uniform Crime Reporting Program at the FBI and the Virginia State Police database on crime reports. So it's not like these numbers were picked from some, random situations. These are straight numbers from government reports stating that Virginia simple marijuana arrests rose 76%, while at the same time, over a course of approximately 11 years, nationally, simple marijuana possession arrests went down 6.5%. And while these numbers are very, very tough numbers to hear in the Commonwealth, you dig a little deeper and start looking at it as per, a racial disparity issue. And in 2003, the number was 2.4 African Americans in the Commonwealth of Virginia were arrested per every white counterpart for simple marijuana possession. In 2012, that number, 3.3 African Americans arrested per one white for simple marijuana possession. And again, these numbers are simple government data that has been crunched by the government bean counters. So it's not loaded. And that is atrocious information in a time where we're living like this, where you're seeing a lot of issues within communities of color. You're seeing the gaps widen on certain sides of the aisles where we need to be coming together. We need to be progressing as a society. We need to be looking beyond stuff like this. And then you start digging a little bit deeper, and you see that from 2003 to 2013, arrests of black people in Virginia for marijuana possession increased at a rate of 106%, and comparing the arrests of white people, 44% during the same reporting period. So again, these numbers just do not add up when we're looking at communities, comparing apples to apples, basically, that these communities need to represent how they represent the overall general population, and we're not seeing that. In 2003, Virginians comprised 39% of marijuana possession arrests, but only 20% of the state population. That's black Virginians comprised 39% of marijuana possession arrests, but only 20% of the state population. In 2013, black Virginians accounted for nearly half, 47% of possession arrests, but remained only 20% of the state population. So we saw that number increase almost 10% over that same reporting period of 2003 to 2013. And these racial disparity numbers it's just horrible to hear them when you have science backing up some of these community claims here from communities of color. So we're just going to keep on digging into this to kind of lay the groundwork as to where the conversation I had recently back last week with Councilman Paul Riddick, Norfolk City Council, who decided to bring up the issue of marijuana decriminalization. This is TJ the DJ on Topical Applications here on WODU, Old Dominion University. The Webb Center campus is where our studios are located. Today we're talking about decriminalization of marijuana in the city of Norfolk, as brought up by City Councilman Paul Riddick. I'll be airing an interview that I had with him recently, so stick around for that. live streaming on Periscope at TJ the DJ WFOS is my live stream on Periscope. We'll probably switch that over to Facebook live stream here in a few minutes. Like I said, we're going to talk a little bit further about these simple marijuana possession arrest numbers in the Commonwealth of Virginia, specifically in the Hampton Roads area. Then we're going to get into an interview I had with Councilman Paul Riddick. And to close out the show today, we'll talk about what Governor Terry McAuliffe here in Virginia has been doing to restore the voting rights of ex-felons, as well as what President Obama has been doing to restore the rights of low-level nonviolent drug offenders in the federal prison system. Again, this is Topical Applications. I'm TJ, the DJ, here on WODU. You can live stream us on YouTube. You can find us on the campus TV channels, and you can also find us tunein.com as well as Spreaker. I am live streaming on Periscope at TJ the DJ WFOS. So just digging more into these racial disparity numbers for simple marijuana possession in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Marijuana was used on an annual basis by 11.3% of black respondents in Virginia compared to 9.1% white respondents. Of course, these are numbers coming from the study titled Racial Disparities in Marijuana Arrests in Virginia, as prepared by Professor Dr. John Getman at Shenandoah University. The study was released in October of last year by the Drug Policy Alliance, and we're talking about marijuana and how it's affecting Virginians here, as Councilman Paul Riddick has brought up the topic of marijuana decriminalization to be included in Norfolk City Council's legislative package going to Richmond for the 2017 General Assembly session. So marijuana was used on an annual basis by 11.3% of black respondents in Virginia compared to 9.1% of white respondents. While marijuana use among black people was 24% greater than among white people, this does not explain why the arrest rates were 233% higher for African Americans in Virginia compared to white Virginians. And again, these numbers are just not statistically adding up. And that's where we need to question what's going on, what's causing this to happen. And we have, this war on drugs. It's been a war on drugs since the 80s, and you can even take it all the way back to the Nixon administration. However, being a child of the 80s, I recall, the Just Say No campaign First Lady Nancy Reagan rolled out along with President Ronald Reagan. And actually, we just saw on television yesterday, my 12-year-old son and I were sitting there watching TV, and he saw a commercial from with the "This Is Your Brain on Drugs" fried egg commercial, and he just said, I don't understand why. 12 years old does not understand why they're trying to stigmatize a public health issue. And marijuana is included in this drug category, as it can be an intoxicant. It can be used medicinally. And that's where a lot of my knowledge on the topic comes from, is the fight to change policy on the medicinal side of things. And we're talking about marijuana decriminalization in Norfolk as proposed by Councilman Paul Riddick. And decriminalization is, as you'll hear in the interview coming up here in just a few minutes, it is a step forward. It's kind of a first step a lot of times, and that's what other states have seen. And so we're comparing the numbers here as African Americans in Virginia used marijuana at 24% more than their white counterparts, yet were arrested 233% more times. And so this war on drugs is targeting communities that, it's showing racial disparity. And then it's supposed to slow down the use of drugs. We're in a heroin epidemic in the United States of America. Across the globe, we're in a heroin epidemic. And marijuana, 57.6%, so almost 58% of Virginians aged 12 or older in this report released by Dr. Getman at Shenandoah University, 58% almost of Virginians 12 and older say that marijuana is easy to obtain, including over 3/4 of the respondents aged 18 to 25. So that's the campus population. So we're targeting, again, young audiences. We're targeting audiences that are, minority communities, people of color. So what gives here in this war on drugs? The racial disparity is tough. And so then digging more into the local numbers here, this study looked at the top 50 jurisdictions in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Norfolk came in at 49% increase in arrest rates, or marijuana possession arrest rates. Let's see here. Marijuana possession arrests for African American members of the community in Norfolk, 49% of the marijuana arrests were for people of African American descent. And again, it's insane. It's insane. The fact that these numbers are what they are. And this conversation is a conversation that hasn't changed since the late 70s. And looking at these numbers even deeper, it's just horrible. We saw a 49% increase from 2011 to 2013 in Norfolk. That's the number I was trying to pull out just a second ago. 30% increase in the city of Chesapeake, almost 20%, 19% in Virginia Beach. Portsmouth saw 12%. In a time where we have prison overpopulation, prison overcrowding, when we have a clogged up criminal justice system, we need to start evaluating things like these, where maybe it is time to ask, should we just treat it like, some minor civil penalty or infraction where you get a ticket and you pay it, you go on your way, and a police officer can use her or his own discretion as to even whether to stop and take the time to write a ticket. It's 2016. This conversation last changed in 1979. And back then, the General Assembly of Virginia saw that they needed to progress on the issue. They started thinking in the terms of progress, decided it would be appropriate to treat evaluation of marijuana for personal use differently than cultivation for distribution, is the quote the subcommittee found according to this 2015 study released from Shenandoah University president, Shenandoah University professor Dr. Getman, titled Racial Disparities of Marijuana Arrests in Virginia, here on Topical Applications, WODU. And so we're talking about now the history of where this conversation has been. And basically in 1979, the Virginia General Assembly said that they wanted to start making progress and treat personal possession different than charges of distribution. Personal cultivation as well. Persons are cultivating marijuana for personal use would be charged with possession of marijuana. Legislative history then quoted a CBS radio commentary by James Kilpatrick, a prominent Virginia journalist of the time in 1979, and Mr. Kilpatrick stated, "As a practical matter, it strikes me as plain stupid to divert scarce police manpower to the senseless pastime of making marijuana busts. It's absurd, as I see it, to squander police resources on 441,000 marijuana arrests nationally a year. These cases clog our courts, they have a lasting stigma upon the young people who get arrested, and they are not useful as a deterrent." 1979, this conversation was happening. In 1979, it was called stupid to make arrests for simple marijuana possession. And that's kind of where it's been in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Marijuana possession arrests since 1979 have not produced a reduction in marijuana use in Virginia. And, 76% of Virginia young adults, 18 to 25, say that it's easy to find marijuana. So the discussion of this, the kind of conclusion of this study here, released by Drug Policy Alliance in October of last year, prepared by Dr. John Getman at Shenandoah University, says the trends contradict the general intent of the legislature in enacting Virginia's current marijuana possession law. First, these statistics represent consistent increases in the costs of marijuana arrests for both individuals and the state. Second, the individual costs are being disproportionately borne by the state's minority black population. Third, these trends have established a discriminatory application of criminal sanctions when the original intent was to diminish such impacts. That's what the conclusion of Dr. Getman at Shenandoah University came to. Looking at these numbers, racial disparities, and we can keep digging into, the top 50 jurisdictions for marijuana possession arrests in Virginia in 2013. Virginia Beach came in at number 4. Let's see, they were at 1,113 marijuana possession arrests in 2013. Chesapeake was number 5. 1,053 simple marijuana possession arrests. Newport News, number 7. Norfolk was number 8. Norfolk came in with 720 simple marijuana possession arrests. So this isn't even with intent to distribute. So these people just had a small amount of marijuana on them, more than likely for personal use. And we're clogging up the court systems with these. And just about, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... all 7 cities in the Hampton Roads area are on the list of the top 50 jurisdictions for marijuana possession arrests in 2013. And then if you continue to analyze these numbers and compare them, it's not proper to be targeting communities of color marijuana possession arrests in the top 50 jurisdictions by race in 2013. Virginia Beach was number 4, Chesapeake number 5, Newport News, and then Norfolk came in at number 8. Norfolk, you saw 80% of the marijuana arrests were from the African American community compared to 20% of the marijuana arrests from the white community, and the use rate in the African American community is not that much greater, and they comprise less of the population in the community here in Hampton Roads. So the numbers just do not add up, and that's what this discussion here on Topical Applications today is about on WODU, beautiful web center here on campus, Old Dominion University, Norfolk, Virginia. I am TJ the DJ. Topical Applications, Mondays from 10:30 until 11:30 WODU, where we'll tackle the tough topics, stuff that people might not be talking about, and sometimes we'll even have fun with it. So hanging out, WODU, you can stream us live on YouTube, find us on Spreaker, TuneIn. I'm streaming at TJ the DJ WFOS on Periscope. We'll probably switch over. Right now, we'll probably switch over to Facebook live stream here in a few minutes. Right now, we are discussing the racial disparities of simple marijuana possession arrests in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Just got done going over a study released by Shenandoah University Professor John Getman. Drug Policy Alliance released it in October of 2015, basically comparing numbers from 2003 to 2013, showing that while African Americans and whites use marijuana, responding to surveys, use marijuana at fairly similar rates, slightly higher for the African American community, around 11%, with the white community being around 9% use, as per the respondents in the survey for this study. And yet African Americans are arrested. They're like 5 times more likely to be arrested in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So we need to have this conversation. I sat down. The reason I sparked this conversation up for the first episode of Topical Applications was because I sat down with Norfolk City Councilman Paul Riddick on Thursday after he brought up the topic back a couple of weeks ago in Norfolk City Council chambers. And then Norfolk City Councilman Tommy Smeagol has also stated that he is going to bring a workshop to the Virginia Municipal League conference happening in Virginia Beach, October 9th through the 11th, talking about the decriminalization of small amounts of marijuana. And so we wanted to have this conversation. I wanted to have it on the air here on the campus of Old Dominion University, because I don't know if a lot of students recognize the fact that these laws do directly affect them. You're a younger audience. You can possibly be targeted when you're out and about just for being younger. You might not, you might make more daring decisions than older people in the community. And the age actually wasn't even taken into account here in this study talking about racial disparity. And yet, typically you see a lot of younger people having more interactions with law enforcement. And so it also could affect your student loans. You could lose your student loans for a period if you're convicted of a low-level drug offense. So you could essentially lose your education. And then when you lose your education, you aren't going to be as productive of a member of society, possibly. You have a lot tougher road, a lot tougher hill to climb coming up. And we're in the holds of a heroin epidemic. We're in the holds of a prescription drug epidemic in this country. So we need to come up with solutions instead of just trying to point fingers at the problem. And that's what Norfolk City Councilman Paul Riddick and I sat down on Thursday at his family funeral service there over in the 5 Points community of Norfolk. And we had this conversation, and we talked about what it was that was driving him to discuss marijuana decriminalization in the city of Norfolk. So now we're just going to air that, sit back and, talk to Councilman Paul Riddick here. It's about 15 minutes of myself and him having a conversation talking about marijuana decriminalization. You are tuned in to WODU. I am TJ the DJ. This is Topical Applications on WODU, talking about the tough topics as well as some fun topics. It's just going to be kind of a hodgepodge, whatever we come up with here on WODU. And so here it is, my conversation with Norfolk City Councilman Paul Riddick last Thursday in the 5 Points section of Norfolk. This is TJ the DJ here with Topical Applications on WODU, sitting here with Norfolk City Councilman Paul Riddick, who has recently brought up the conversation of decriminalizing small amounts of marijuana within the city of Norfolk. Councilman Riddick, first of all, I'd like to share my appreciation with you for allowing me this opportunity to chat. And I wanted to start, we're sitting here in the 5 Points section of Norfolk. This is a very historical area of Norfolk, especially for the African-American community. Your family has been here with the funeral home for quite some time. Can we go about your history within the community and what brought you to this point of bringing up that bad M word in city council chambers?
Well, I was formerly president of Norfolk branch of the NAACP, and I became elected to the Norfolk City Council in 1992. I've been on council for 24 years. And when it comes to the decriminalization of marijuana, as I mentioned to you earlier, I became interested because of Mayor Daley, former Mayor Daley of Chicago. And Chicago decriminalized small amounts of marijuana maybe 10 or 12 years ago. They found that a police officer would arrest somebody for a small amount of marijuana. They'd go to court. The first time, the person would say, well, I need to get a lawyer. And then they go back and the lawyer say, well, I haven't been familiar with the case. And they were going to court at least 5 or 6 times before the actual adjudication took place. And so Mayor Daley believed that it would be better, as opposed to taking police officers off the street, whether it's their day off or leaving the beat, for lack of a better term, to just use a small amount of marijuana you'd be punished with a civil penalty. Now, this also, civil penalty would not have a reflection on your record, meaning you would not be, flagged as a marijuana user. Funny thing that the day after I mentioned this in the Norfolk City Council, the chief of police over in Portsmouth said that she was having difficulty getting police officers because they might have smoked marijuana once or twice. And the board that actually hires the police officers, Civil Service Board, would not hire individuals who had, smoked marijuana. And so I guess we're here in 2016, and we're really sending mixed messages nationwide because we have certain states that have legalized marijuana, certain states and localities that allow use of marijuana for medical purposes, and we have states and cities who have decriminalized marijuana. And so I kind of think it's time for Virginia to have a serious talk about it and the impact that it has on citizens, whether they're young or whether they're middle-aged or whoever they are, and just have a very serious conversation about the decriminalization of marijuana. And hopefully the legislators will see the prudence in it, and we would be able to do that, and that would be a step in the right direction in my mind.
Now, you brought up the fact that we are in 2016 today, mm-hmm. and we went over some numbers based upon some of these questions that we're going to discuss here a few minutes ago, and I pointed out to you that Virginia's General Assembly really hasn't had a true conversation on marijuana since 1979, mm-hmm. when Carter was leaving office and Reagan was coming into office. Now, what are your thoughts and feelings on the fact that we're still playing with policies from 1979 here?
Well, Virginia is a very conservative state. They won't even consider casinos and riverboat gaming. And it just goes, this issue just goes along with the fact that Virginia is a conservative state. They want to remain the old cradle of the Confederacy, where they just, don't want to move forward, in the 21st century.
Right. And appreciate that you brought up the cradle of Confederacy reference, because again, these numbers that I reference, the study is from a October 2015 study released by Drug Policy Alliance, and it's titled Racial Disparities in Marijuana Arrests in Virginia. And first, I just want to talk about some of the overall numbers. As national arrest rates for marijuana possession fell 6.5% between 2003 to 2014, Virginia's rose 76%, while use in Virginia only increased less than 1 percentage point. How would you analyze your decriminalization efforts based upon that number? Do you anticipate that we would see those numbers change?
I don't know whether the numbers would change or not. I really don't have a feel for that. But I tell you, if marijuana is decriminalized, I don't think you're going to find people who don't already smoke marijuana running out and say, well, hey, let me start smoking because it's decriminalized. I think what you're going to see is the numbers will probably be close to the same, I'm thinking. It just makes it less of a penalty for individuals who occasionally smoke marijuana.
Now, what I just pulled out here and showing you, this is a Quinnipiac University poll released April of last year, and that last highlighted line actually goes to the statement, backing up the statement you just said, that, people would not increase the amount of usage if it were decriminalized or legalized tomorrow. So you did make that statement, and it science says that is an accurate statement. And would you at least expect to see the arrest rate for simple possession fall with the decriminalization of small amounts of marijuana?
Yeah, I believe it would. I believe it would fall. You're going to probably see individuals who use marijuana for recreational purposes, even if they use it for medical purposes, believing that they don't have the pressure on them that they would have normally, and they'd be more relaxed and would just more or less probably, I don't think you're going to see men or women riding down the street smoking marijuana in their cars because of the decriminalization of small amounts. I think you're going to probably see, hopefully, a more intelligent approach, to marijuana. The user would say, well, listen, my state has decided to come into the 21st century, so let me do what I can do to be responsible. Now, it could be, just blowing smoke, but I kind of believe that you're going to see a more intelligent population.
Right. And also going back to that racial disparity within the Commonwealth, arrest rates for African Americans in the Commonwealth of Virginia, specifically in 50 jurisdictions pointed out in this Drug Policy Alliance survey from last year, the African American arrest rates are 233% higher than their white counterparts as far as marijuana possession goes, although admitted use is only 24% higher in the African American community when compared to the white community. What does this equation mean to you as, first of all, an African American resident of Norfolk, and secondly, a member of the city council in Norfolk?
Well, what it does, it further shows the disparity as far as arrests are concerned of African Americans. There was an article in the Newport News Daily Press maybe about 2 months ago, and it had a breakdown of African Americans and whites who were arrested for the same thing. The whites would not go to jail. African Americans would go to jail for the exact same crime for a longer period of time. And so it just bodes to the fact that here in 2016 that there's still a disparity where African Americans are being treated differently when they go to court. They're being treated differently when they're arrested by police officers and the charges that they're given. And also the Commonwealth attorneys in our region need to be taken to task for the fact that they have continued to treat the African American unfairly when it comes to the judicial system.
Christopher Newport University conducted a poll back in January of last year going into the General Assembly session. They want to know about marijuana use and where the support stands, rightfully so. Like you have your interests as well. And this poll here, January 27th, 2015, one of the most recent ones we have of its sort, states that more than 70% of Virginians support decriminalization, and the numbers show that number is actually a little bit higher in the Hampton Roads area at 77%. Why do you believe Virginia's legislators, especially the delegation from Hampton Roads, why do you believe that these legislators have been so slow to work for this type of legislation?
The first thing that comes to my mind is in Virginia, elected officials could be afraid of
legislators
a Christian
have
backlash.
been so slow to work.
A lot of your preachers, whether it's in the rural part of the state or even in your urban part of the state, do not embrace this particular effort. And when it comes to being reelected, the first place you're going to go to a lot of times is to a church. And if a church turns their back on you or for a political candidate, then that could be one reason. It's funny you would say Christopher Newport. My youngest son is a sophomore there, and he was there at that time, and has no interest in smoking marijuana, cigarettes, or anything, or even drinking a cold beer. And so it really just shows that it goes from person to person, as far as smoking marijuana and things like that. It was funny, the article that was. I wish I could remember some of the in the Virginian Pilot when they ran this article. How the people chime in.
Right.
And I really could, wish I could remember some of the things that were said, but most of the people were supportive.
I believe the unscientific poll that Wavy ran after the story was like somewhere around 94% supported.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think you might have asked me earlier. What do I think? My city council. I think my city council would embrace, a study. Mm-hmm. My city council, I think, would the majority of my council, I believe, would let this go to the General Assembly in our legislative package. I've had a couple of council members informally to say, well, listen, I kind of believe that that's the right way to go.
Right. And finally, what are your goals of opening up this dialogue? I know that we've discussed the arrest rates, the racial disparities. So what are your goals as Councilman Paul Riddick in opening up this dialogue about marijuana decriminalization?
I think I would continue, even if it doesn't get to the General Assembly this year. I think I would continue my efforts coming from the local level to see how much support I could get. Even dealing with some of the legislators that I know in this area that are members of General Assembly. And I would ask them to talk to some of their Republican counterparts, because it seems that, not naturally, but in Virginia, our governing body is majority Republican. And it seems to me that some of those individuals should be young enough and have constituencies that are young enough to realize the importance of doing a legislation which would decriminalize. Nobody's saying let's, take it and start selling them on a street corner. This is just the first effort. Not saying it won't go to that, but this is just the first effort to make life a lot easier for people who do enjoy smoking marijuana socially, and they're not worried about losing their job for the most part, depending on the type of job it is, of course.
Right.
But I think it's just the right thing to do, and I hope that our General Assembly will see the prudence of just having a discussion. Sometimes these elected officials in the General Assembly, they would just stonewall you, and when we have the discussion, and I think it'll be healthy if we just had the discussion.
Well, I want to thank you for your time and your words today. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
Well, first of all, I appreciate your efforts, and because your efforts are going to certainly make life easier for a lot of people, and I thank you for taking your time to believe that what I had to say, was valuable, and let's just, keep tabs on this thing and see what happens.
All right. Well, okay. TJ the DJ here, Topical Applications, sitting in 5 points with Councilman Paul Riddick. Thanks a lot for your time, Councilman.
Okay, certainly.
That was a conversation I had with Councilman Paul Riddick for this show, Topical Applications on WODU. You can stream us live on YouTube. I'm also streaming on my personal Facebook page, and we have other avenues of tuning in as well, such as tunein.com. You can get that app for your smart device, as well as Spreaker. And you can tune that in as long as you have internet access and a speaker to listen to us on any of those sources. Like I said, again, YouTube Live, just go to the WODU Live stream page, WODU Studios, here on the beautiful campus of Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia. I am TJ the DJ. This is Topical Applications, my first episode, my first ever talk show, and you just heard my conversation I had last Thursday with Norfolk City Council member Paul Riddick regarding marijuana decriminalization. And going from that topic to the next here on the shows, we've only got less than 10 minutes remaining. We're going to talk about Governor McAuliffe restoring the rights of former felons. You do the crime, you do the time, and then once you are released from prison, you typically still have an uphill battle. And the last few governors have all seen that low-level nonviolent felons, especially, low-level nonviolent drug offenders, simple possession charges is what we're talking about here. They tend to still pay for those crimes long after they happened. And until we can change the laws, we need to see efforts like this. Virginia is one of only 4 states remaining that doesn't restore the rights of former felons. And it's something that stays with them. And again, this is a conversation we need to be having. That's why it's here on Topical Applications. And the way it affects the campus of Old Dominion University is, we have surrounding communities, the African-American community, minority communities. We have younger communities here. So communities that tend to seem to be targeted a little more. as far as the statistics show, government arrest statistics, we just went over that for the first portion of the show, and before that conversation with Councilman Riddick, because that's kind of what led that conversation, is the statistics show that African Americans in Virginia are more likely to be arrested than their white counterparts, and it's a conversation we need to have. And so Governor McAuliffe followed in the ways of Governor McDonnell and Governor Kane, who is now the vice presidential running mate of Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. And Governor Kane restored the rights of former felons in Virginia. Governor Bob McDonnell, Republican, polar opposite of Governor McAuliffe, restored the rights of thousands of non-violent felons, former felons in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so now we're seeing, the same thing happen with Virginia's Governor McAuliffe, and the Virginia Supreme Court just overruled him. They just said that he cannot do what he's doing, although, 46 other states have similar plans in place, maybe not as progressive as what Governor McAuliffe was doing. Automatically, once you're out of prison, once you do your time, you get your rights automatically restored. However, it's not a hard process in other states, is where I'm trying to go with this. And then it's a bipartisan issue. Congressman Bobby Scott has been a big leader on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. on this issue of criminal justice reform and helping restore voting rights. And it's voting rights. It's, all sorts of rights. And we're not talking about the dregs of society. We're talking about your neighbors. We're talking about people in your communities. Somebody that might have an addiction problem that needs medical attention, not criminal attention, not criminal justice or injustice attention. And so that's what Governor McAuliffe's trying to do. That's what Governor Bob McDonnell did. That's what Governor Kane did. So it's a cycle that we're seeing, and the Virginia GOP are the ones who pushed back against it, stating that it's not fair to society. And then the Supreme Court ruled with the Virginia GOP, the Republican Party of Virginia, in stating that the way Governor McAuliffe had done it had never been done before. That's the only reason they stated for not siding with Governor McAuliffe here in Virginia on automatically restoring the rights of former felons in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And the way this goes nationally is President Obama just recently commuted the sentences of 111 nonviolent drug offenders here in the United States in the federal prison system. And so we're seeing this go nationally. We're seeing the conversation on an international level, yet we're seeing fights. We're still having to fight an uphill battle about, giving people their basic rights back, their basic dignities back that have been taken from them. And, the president sees it as, everybody needs to have the opportunity to vote. Again, you do the crime, you do the time, you pay your debt to society. Once you're released and said you're reformed, then shouldn't you have those inalienable rights back? The rights that you're supposedly born with, yet can't have until you're 18 a lot of times. And so what gives in this conversation? We need to find that common ground, and we have found that common ground. At least on a national conversation, we found that common ground. President Obama's doing it within the Department of Justice, and the Commonwealth of Virginia, like I said before, it's a bipartisan effort. Congressman Bobby Scott's carried on the bipartisan effort up in D.C. Governor Bob McDonnell, Governor McAuliffe, Governor Kane have carried on the conversation here in the Commonwealth. And now we're seeing it here in Norfolk, talking about the decriminalization of Norfolk, of marijuana simple possession in Norfolk, and it's trickling down to low level because we're not allowed to have the conversation in Richmond. So that's what we ask. We can just have these reform conversations in Richmond. The General Assembly keeps stalemating the conversation. And so we need to find out why. We need to get this conversation going. Both sides of the aisle support this. So that's why I wanted to bring this up today. It's a bipartisan issue. These low-level drug offenses, low-level felonies that are on your record, they follow you for your entire life. You remove people's rights that they're supposedly born with. And then you make them not a sovereign being anymore. And that's not what being a fellow human being is about. We need to find places where we can come together, and that's what Topical Applications is about here on WODU. I am TJ the DJ, and I am just about out of time here on Topical Applications, WODU. Find us on YouTube Live, Spreaker, TuneIn. I am streaming on my personal Facebook page. You can find me on Twitter at TJ the DJ WFOS. I'll also go on Periscope from time to time and keep you updated. Not sure where the conversation is going to go next Monday at 10:30. However, I would like you to tune in with me here on Topical Applications, as recommended once daily by me, TJ the DJ, where we're going to have a conversation about stuff that's happening in the community of Old Dominion University, Norfolk, Hampton Roads, Virginia, the Commonwealth, and nationally, and how that might affect the student population. Again, I want to say thank you to Councilman Paul Riddick for having the conversation in city council chambers about marijuana decriminalization, as well as having the conversation with me last Thursday at his family funeral home in the 5 Point section of Norfolk. I am TJ the DJ. It has been a lot of fun today. Topical Applications, tackling some of the tough topics and sometimes some fun topics here on WODU. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Until next Monday. Oh, and I will be live on WODU Friday at 2:30 p.m. playing some music this time. You won't hear me talking that much. Playing some really good punk rock, ska, roots, reggae, and maybe a little old school hip hop. Who knows what I'll pull out on Bullying the Jukebox here on WODU. Again, that's happening Fridays from 2:30 until 3:30, kicking off your weekends here on WODU. And then next Monday at 10:30, you'll be able to hear me right here. Topical Applications, TJ the DJ, saying so long, farewell, enjoy your week, and remember, just find common points of unity where you can talk to your neighbors. Till then, so long. Thanks for tuning in.